Who's your emergency contact? Who should we notify in the case of death? Welcome to the USP, where I've spent the last 2+ decades of my life. In a previous video, I shared a story about a dude that, grew up here with Mexicans from a Mexican gang, functioned with us, Asians and Islanders. When he went into the penitentiary, he decided to run white. And at the end of the day, it didn't work out for him. Because he's not a racist dude, but the dudes in the penitentiary, they're racist. And that's just the way it is. Well, today, there's another white dude that came from Utah. His name is Cato. He's a blood. At this particular time, I'm in the process of putting a softball team together. And I still got a couple pieces that I need to put together to make my team whole, because the previous year, all the dudes that played on my team got bought out. Other dudes that was putting team together came and paid them to go play softball with them. One of the dudes like, hey man, these dudes offered me 100 books. 100 books is like $500. It's $5 a book. And I'm like, yeah. He's like, what's up, coach? You gonna match it? I'm like, man, I'm not paying you a fucking thing to play no damn jailhouse sports. But I'm not gonna stop you from making your money. If somebody wants to pay you to play some jailhouse sports, more power to you. Matter of fact, I need to get a cut off of that. And, and to his credit, he did cut me in. He gave me 20 books out of the 100 books that he got paid to go play on the GD team. So, a few of my former teammates got paid to go play on other teammates. So I had to start recruiting other players for the positions that I need to fill up. And then here comes this white dude from Utah. So I'm like, and word that I don't know who know him from anywhere, but they said he knew how to play softball. He ended up being in my block. So when I approached him and asked him about playing on my team, they told me he already had signed up on another team already. So I'm like, all right, whatever. But this dude is small. He's like my size, except a little skinnier. But when I hit him up, not hit him up like try to check him or anything like that, but when I hit him up like, hey, where you from? Who you running with? He's like, man, I'm a blood, homie. And he ran with the Bloods. In Florence and throughout the system, there's a Blood and Crip coalition. But a lot of people don't understand too that a lot of these dudes that come out here from Utah, especially if you're black, if you're a Blood or a Crip, like these dudes from California don't really see you as your equal. But that's on the individual. There's individuals that are out here that are white dudes or whatever that run Crips and Blood that got a lot of respect because they're about their business. And I'm not saying Cato is not, because the whole time that we was in the block, he carried himself the way he's supposed to. But at the same time, when situation comes up, when they politic, they're not going to give you, dude, you being out of town, you be from somewhere that they don't know about or whatever, they're not going to give you the same type of respect. Well, at this particular time, they had a couple punks in our block. And had this big black dude, as fruity as it comes, right? And it turns out that the Crips and the Bloods was extorting him. I guess he got money. Like, I don't know anything about the situation as far as his finance or as far as whatever they were doing. It only came to light after the fact, after everything had happened. So the Crips and them, they're extorting them. This punk, they're extorting the Crips and the Bloods. They're extorting them for whatever they're extorting them for. Well, in Florence, it's a hard hustle because the yard is split and there's no more Unicor. Unicor is a facility where people used to go to work at and are able to bring back $300, $400, $500 a month. You know, they did away with the unicorn because the people that filed, the companies out here in the street filed the lawsuit on the penitentiary that they can't compete with the labor. Because, you know, they're paying us pennies on the dollar. You're making 10 cents a freaking hour. You max out like at 25 cents an hour, but sometimes you get bonuses for longevity and overtime and all that. But that being said, the companies out here on the street can't really compete with the labor because out here, you're paying people $15, $20 to do the job that the penitentiaries are paying people 10, 20 cents to do. So they won their lawsuit and the penitentiary did away with all the unicorns. There's still some that have it, but it's been downsized dramatically. But in Florence, there was no unicorn at all. In Florence, the yard was split. So the only people you get to hustle and deal with mostly is in the block. So it makes everything a little harder to take care of yourself to hustle. But the homie Kato, you know, his hustle was tattooing. But, you know, he has his habits. He drinks and he smokes. And I guess one day he got a bright idea that he was like, fuck it. These dudes up there extorting him, I as well get a piece of it too. So he ran up in the punk's cell, pulled a knife on him, and robbed the punk. Made him give up whatever he came in there for, whether it was stamps or dope or whatever, and he took that from the punk. Well, these other Crip dudes, they got in their feelings over it because they felt like he was in a position to do that. So they went in a dude named Playboy. He's from the Midwest. Now I like Playboy. He's a tall black dude, light-skinned black dude, youngster. And I function with him. I'm cool with him, and I really like the dude. But it just keeping it real, I didn't really like how it all played out. You know, he went up in the cell on Kato, and Kato pulled a knife out on him. And the door busts open, and here comes fucking Playboy. Like, you know, he's trying to get away from Kato. But they walk, and Kato's not trying to make a scene in the day room, because, you know, he's not the type of dude that's just going to try to bust a move. So he had his knife on his side. He pulled it out. But, you know, in the penitentiary, we have rules that I guess he wasn't hip to, or that people didn't hip the homie to. You cannot pull a knife out on somebody and don't stab him. That's a no-no. You can't even act like you got a knife on you if you ain't got it and if you ain't going to use it. You know, because then it becomes like you pump faking. But anyway, you know, I'm sitting in my cell. From where my cell is, I'm watching TV and I can see the whole, I don't know what transpired, what brought on the incident, but I see Playboy coming out of the cell with Kato on his tail, So Playboy beamline straight to the big homie, Stein. And he's a Crip homie out of California. And he had the yard for all the Crips and the Bloods there in Florence, especially in our block. You know, I'm watching from a few yards away, and I can hear the conversation. I can't really hear the conversation, but I can get the gist of the conversation. And what was said, it was like, hey, you can't be pulling a knife on the homie. You guys want to go in there and handle it. You know, heads up. But it's really not a fair fight. Kato is like 5'5" at the most, 130 pounds soaking wet. Where Playboy, that dude is like 6'3", 6'4". Yeah, he's slim, but his arm's a lot longer and he's a lot bigger. And just by your size, you're going to be a lot stronger. But Kato ain't ducking no wreck. You know, I give my props to a dude. I ain't got nothing bad to say about him other than the situation, than he didn't understand where he was at and how the politics work. So they went into the cell. They had a couple dudes hold the door so nobody can get in there, and they fought. And of course, Playboy won. Playboy opened up the door, came out like he did something. Like I said, I got love for Playboy, but that kind of took down a notch out of the respect that I had for him. Kind of went down a notch because, like, you can't really get no stripe. You just beat up on a little dude, and you beat up on the dude because you guys got on your feelings because he went up there and robbed a punk. Like, if that's your homeboy, you back your homeboys play all day. You know what I mean? That's your homeboy. They were both bloods. So when Playboy leaves the cell, he heads up to his room. And K-Do is still in the room. But a dude from Watts goes in there and tells him he needs to get the fuck out of the cell. And K-Do is all bloody. Like, he got pieced up. He got knocked out in there. I don't know if he got stomped out or anything, but he's busted up. And he's dazed. And the Crip dude is trying to tell him he need to fucking go and check in. Check in is running to the police telling him that you need to be saved. But K-Do refused. He wasn't going to he wasn't going to check in. And they fucking grabbed him, pushed him out of the cell, but he wasn't going nowhere. But he was standing there leaking, busted up. And the dude from Watts ran out the cell and started piecing him up in the day room. And the police saw it. They came, swooped him up, and sent him to the SHU. Both of them for fighting. Playboy never went because, the incident was in the room and the cops never saw it. But when the Watts dude came out and pieced up K-Do, that attracted the scene from the CO, and they came over there, contained the situation, cuffed him up, and escorted him off the compound and sent him to the SHU. And the dude from Watts came back out a month later, but K-Do never did. And the reason I'm sharing the story today is that, like I emphasized, like I got a lot of homies out from California that are Bloods and Crips. But, the mentality of dudes from California, the mentality of dudes from these big cities, they really don't think that shit goes off out here in the small towns, in the small states like Utah. But for the most part, all the homies that's been in the feds that are from Utah, they rep that 801. They push that. But again, at the same time, we're always outnumbered when we're out there in the feds because they don't have no federal prison out here in Utah. So for any of those that are going up there, understand, homie, that you're not going to be embraced and accepted by these dudes unless you go the extra mile, unless you insist on being respected. And the only way you can insist on being respected is the first time somebody jump out there, you break their jaw. And I'm not preaching violence or anything like that, but that's just the environment that you're in. Like, at the end of the day, the universal language is violence. Violence leaves no misunderstanding on what you're trying to convey. And that's the only thing that people respect. Because until they feel that you're going to bust them inside their head, they're not going to give you any type of credit, give any type of respect, regardless of what you've done out here, regardless of who you affiliate with. Unless they know and understand that you're a threat, then they'll give you some respect. It might not be, reasonable or whatever the word is, but that's just the way the life is in a USP. Welcome to the USP.